The Altar of Secrets, a story of faith, betrayal, and the truth. Thank you for joining me. I'm Palmer Witcher-Mims, and these are my stories. I hope you enjoy them, and if so, hit that like button and please click the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and you'll be notified when we drop a new story. Join us every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday for new journeys. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's narrative. Part 1. The Porcelain Pedestal. For 22 years, my life was measured in Sunday mornings. If you grew up in the South, you know the smell of a sanctuary before the air conditioning kicks in. That specific mixture of floor wax, old paper, and the faint, lingering scent of lily-scented perfume from the early service. I knew every inch of the living well. I knew which floorboard near the choir loft creaked if you stepped on it too hard. I knew the exact weight of the silver communion trays, and I knew how to polish them until I could see my own reflection in the metal. Back then, I liked what I saw. I was Robyn Weaver, the First Lady of the fastest-growing congregation in the county. Beside me was Elias. Elias Weaver didn't just walk, he commanded space. He had a voice like aged bourbon, smooth, warm, and slightly intoxicating. When he stood behind that mahogany pulpit, he wasn't just my husband, he was a vessel. We had started in a storefront with 12 folding chairs and a space heater that hissed during the invitation. 20 years later, we sat in a $30 million cathedral with 3 services and a televised broadcast. We were the gold standard. Every marriage seminar we hosted, every hand we held in the hospital wing, we were the blueprint. We were the couple that young believers looked at when they wanted to know what a godly union looked like. But looking back, I realized that when you spend 20 years building a pedestal that high, you spend most of your time terrified of the wind. The crack in the porcelain didn't happen during a storm. It happened on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday for the last 2 decades. Part 2. The Woman in Yellow. Elias was in his study, likely prepping for the midweek Bible study. I was in the fellowship hall, organizing the ladies' auxiliary outreach. The glass doors of the lobby swung open, and a woman walked in. In a church of 3,000, you see a lot of strangers, but this woman, she didn't look like someone seeking a blessing. She looked like someone who had already been cursed and was looking for the person who had done it. She was young, maybe 24. She wore a yellow sundress that had seen better days, the hem slightly frayed. In her arms was a toddler, a boy no older than 2. He had a shock of thick, dark hair and eyes that were heavy-lidded, even in his sleep. "Can I help you, dear?" I asked, my pastor's wife voice sliding into place like a well-oiled bolt. "The food pantry doesn't open until Thursday, but if you're in need—" "I'm not here for bread," she said. Her voice was thin, but it didn't tremble. She walked closer, her eyes scanning the portraits on the wall, the ones showing Elias and me shaking hands with governors, cutting ribbons, smiling at the camera. She stopped in front of the largest one. "He looks different in person," she whispered. "I'm sorry?" I stepped toward her, a strange coldness beginning to seep into my chest. She turned to me then. She didn't look angry, she looked exhausted. She shifted the weight of the sleeping boy, and for a second his head fell back against her shoulder. My heart stopped. The boy had a cowlick, a very specific, stubborn swirl of hair right at the crown of his head. It was the same cowlick I had smoothed down on Elias's head every Sunday morning for 22 years. "His name is Samuel," the girl said. "I named him after the prophet, because the prophet was a gift from God, even if he was born into a house of secrets." "Who are you?" I asked. My voice sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "My name is Mara, and Samuel needs to know his father." She looked at the portrait of Elias, then back at me. And I think you need to know your husband. Part 3. The Sanctuary of Silence. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her out. I did what I had been trained to do for 2 decades. I managed the crisis. I led her into my private office, closed the door, and locked it. "Tell me," I said. And she did. She told me about a leadership retreat 3 years ago in Atlanta. She had been a volunteer at the hotel, a girl working her way through community college. She told me about the way Elias had looked at her, how he had told her she had a shining spirit that was being wasted in service work. He had mentored her, he had prayed with her, and then he had destroyed her. She showed me her phone. There were texts. Not many, Elias was too smart for that, but there were enough. The Lord moves in mysterious ways, Mara. Our connection is spiritual. The world wouldn't understand. I've sent a gift to your Cash App. Use it for the apartment. This is our little ministry. I felt like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. I looked at the toddler, Samuel, who was now awake and playing with a paperclip on my desk. He laughed, and the sound was a knife. It was the same boisterous, chesty laugh Elias gave after a good Sunday lunch. "Why now?" I asked. "Because he stopped," Mara said, her eyes filling with tears. "The payment stopped 3 months ago. He blocked my number. He told me if I ever showed up here, he'd tell the board I was an obsessed stalker with mental health issues. He said nobody would believe a girl like me over a man like him." She was right. The board would crucify her. The congregation would stone her with their judgment. "Go," I told her, sliding a business card across the desk. "Give me 48 hours. Don't go to the press. Don't go to the deacons. Just give me 2 days. When she left, I didn't cry. I went to the sanctuary. I sat in the front row, looking up at the empty pulpit. The sun was setting, hitting the stained glass, casting long, bloody red shadows across the pews. Elias walked in 10 minutes later. He was humming a hymn. "Robyn, you still here, honey? I thought we were heading to the Millers for dinner." I didn't turn around. "A woman came by today, Elias. Her name is Mara." The silence that followed was heavy. I could hear his breathing change, the rhythmic, controlled breath of a public speaker suddenly hitching. "I don't know who that is," he said. His voice was steady, too steady. "She has a son, Elias. He has your hair, he has your laugh, and he has your cowlick." I turned then. He was standing in the shadows of the centre aisle. He didn't look like a man of God. He looked like a statue. "The enemy is crafty, Robyn," he said, finally stepping into the light. He walked toward me, his hand outstretched, his face shifting into that practiced expression of sorrow and concern. "People will do anything to tear down a work of the Spirit. You know this. We've fought these battles before." "This isn't a battle, Elias. This is a baby." He knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his. His palms were warm. "I have never been unfaithful to you. I swear it on the word. This woman, she's a grifter. I helped her once, out of the kindness of my heart, and now she's twisting it. She's trying to extort the church." He looked me in the eye. He didn't blink. For a second, I almost believed him. That was his gift. He could make a lie feel like a warm blanket. "Then let's do a DNA test," I said. "Privately, to clear your name." He didn't flinch. "I won't dignify a lie with a test, Robyn. It would show weakness. It would show the board that I'm moved by the whispers of the world. We stand firm. We defend the house. Together." Part 4. The Ledger of Souls. For the next 24 hours, I played the part. I went to the Millers' dinner. I smiled. I nodded. I prayed over the pot roast. But inside, I was a stranger to myself. I had spent 20 years as the church treasurer. Elias trusted me with the books because a man shouldn't handle the silver. It was a role I took pride in. But that night, while Elias slept, snoring softly, the sleep of a man with a clear conscience or a dead one, I went to the church office. I sat in the dark, the blue light of the computer screen reflecting in my glasses. I didn't look at the main accounts. I looked at the discretionary benevolence fund. In a large church, benevolence is the catch-all. It's for the widow who can't pay her electric bill, the orphan who needs shoes, the homeless man who needs a night in a motel. It's a fund that is rarely audited with a fine-tooth comb because it's based on pastoral discretion. I started at the current month and worked backward. August, $1,200, outreach. July, $1,200, outreach. June, $1,200, outreach. The payments to Mara had been consistent for 2 years, but then I saw it. 3 years ago, there were payments to a sister Sarah in another city, $800 a month. 5 years ago, a special mission that cost $1,500 a month for 6 months, ending abruptly with a one-time payment of $10,000 listed as legal consultation. My stomach turned. It wasn't just Mara. Mara was just the latest chapter in a book Elias had been writing for a decade. He wasn't just using the church's money. He was using the congregation's tithes, the hard-earned money of waitresses and construction workers, to pay for his discretions. He was buying silences with the widow's mites. I found a folder in the back of the filing cabinet, hidden behind old baptismal records. It contained non-disclosure agreements. Simple forms, typed up on church letterhead, signed by women I recognized from over the years. Women who had suddenly moved away or felt called to a different ministry. I sat there until the sun began to peek through the blinds. I wasn't just the wife of a liar. I was the bookkeeper for a criminal. Part 5. The Anniversary Gala. The following Saturday was the 25th anniversary gala for The Living Well. It was the biggest event in the church's history. The ballroom of the downtown Hyatt was draped in white silk and gold ivy. 500 of the city's most influential people were there. Elias was in his element. He wore a tuxedo that cost more than Mara's car. He moved through the crowd like a king, hand on a shoulder here, a witty joke there. I stood by his side, my pearls feeling like a noose. "You okay, Robyn?" he whispered, leaning in as if to kiss my cheek. "You're a bit pale." "Just the excitement, Elias," I said. The program began. There were videos of our journey, grainy footage of the storefront, interviews with people whose lives had been changed by Elias's ministry. The applause was thunderous. Then came the Life Achievement Award. The head of the board, Deacon Miller, stood up. "Elias and Robyn Weaver are the heartbeat of this community," Miller said, his voice cracking with emotion. "They have shown us what it means to build a house on the rock. Robyn, would you like to say a few words before we present the award to your husband?" Elias beamed at me. He squeezed my hand, a silent command to get up there and be the virtuous woman he needed me to be, to validate him, to shield him. I walked to the podium. The lights were blinding. I looked out at the sea of faces, people who looked at us like we were closer to God than they could ever be. I saw Mara in the back of the room. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was standing by the service entrance, holding Samuel. She looked terrified. I looked at the award on the table, a glass flame with the words, "The truth shall set you free," etched into the base. I took a deep breath. I didn't look at the notes I had prepared. 22 years ago, I began. I promised to stand by Elias Weaver in sickness and in health, in truth and in trial. The room was silent. Elias was smiling, leaning back in his chair, the picture of a proud man. We talk a lot about the living well in this church, I continued. We talk about the water that never runs dry, but lately I've been looking at the plumbing, and I've found that the water is bitter. The smile on Elias's face didn't drop, but his eyes turned into chips of ice. A church is not a building, I said, my voice growing stronger. It is not a budget, and it is certainly not one man. A church is a covenant of truth, and when the truth is traded for a polished image, it is no longer a church, it's a tomb. I reached into my clutch purse and pulled out a stack of papers, the ledger entries I had printed. I have spent the last 48 hours realizing that my husband is not the man you see on that screen. He is a man who uses your tithes to pay for his sins. He is a man who silences women with the money you give to God, and tonight he is a man who will have to look his son in the eye. I pointed toward the back of the room. Mara, please stand up. The room erupted, not in applause, but in a horrific, collective gasp. Elias stood up, his face turning a dark, dangerous purple. Robyn, you're unwell. Sit down, he shouted, trying to reach the podium. But I wasn't finished. I held up the ledger. The outreach fund didn't go to the poor Deacon Miller. It went to a woman in Atlanta. It went to a legal settlement in 2018. It went to keeping the pedestal high enough so Elias wouldn't have to look at the people he stepped on to get there. I looked directly at Elias. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. The truth has set me free, Elias. I hope it does the same for you. I laid the microphone down on the podium. The feedback hummed, a low, mourning sound that filled the ballroom. I walked off the stage, past the stunned deacons, past my husband, and straight to the back of the room. I took Mara's hand, and together we walked out. Part 6. The New Altar. The fallout was nuclear. You can't dismantle a $30 million empire without a lot of debris. The church split into 3 factions within a month. Elias tried to sue me for defamation, but the ledger didn't lie. When the FBI started looking into the benevolence fund, he stepped down. Last I heard, he was trying to start an online ministry from a condo in Florida. He still claims he was a victim of a spiritual attack. The gold standard was gone. I lost the parsonage. I lost my status. I lost the only life I had known since I was 20 years old. People ask me if I lost my faith too. I tell them no. I just moved it. I live in a small apartment now, 2 towns over. It's quiet. There are no silver trays to polish. There are no stained glass windows to filter the light. The sun comes in raw and unfiltered, and I prefer it that way. Once a week, I drive to a park. I meet a young woman in a yellow dress. We sit on a bench while a little boy with a stubborn cowlick runs through the grass. We don't talk about the living well. We talk about the future. We talk about the God who exists in the wreckage, the one who doesn't need a mahogany pulpit to speak. I spent 20 years building a house on the rock, only to find out the rock was just painted plywood. But now I'm building something on the dirt. It's messy, it's humble, but it's real. And for the first time in my life, when I say amen, I actually mean it. It's Palmer again, and thank you for watching. I think Robyn handled the situation like a champ. She understood that a fake man of God and God himself are 2 different entities. I'm glad that she didn't let what her unfaithful, lying, manipulative, cheating husband did change her relationship with God. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you Sunday.